everybody. Hope you are safe wherever you are. Welcome to IIDA Summit 2021. We welcome you from the Architect's Diary and IIDA Summit to this two-day event, which is filled with a lot of architecture and interior design discussions. I am Radha, Managing Editor at the Architect's Diary, and welcoming you to IIDA Summit. IIDA Summit is an initiative by the Architect's Diary. It aims to bring about a stir in architectural fraternity through insightful engagements with renowned and greatest minds in the field of architecture and design. Our sponsors for this event are Insul Pro and Bromic Heating. We thank them from the bottom of their heart for believing in our vision. Our venue that you have seen already is designed by Mantico Designs, and we thank him as well for making live the vision that we had for the entire venue. So there are a lot of challenges at hand for architects throughout the world, mainly because whatever is happening currently in the world in a pandemic situation. Everything is rethought upon and has gotten a different paradigm altogether. So the thing is, we need to locate the crux of any challenge in order to solve the entire thing and give a natural, attempt to solve it. So this year's theme for IIDA Summit, as you all know already, is the foyer to future. Is the future in the hands of advancements of technology, or what is happening on an urban level? Are all the cities which are developed, are urban villages which are very well connected? A lot of things, goes on to an architect's mind currently because of the way we are in the situation. All of these questions and many, many more are brewing in our minds. And through this event, you'll be able to address all these questions, at least give an attempt to do so. Through this two-day event, you will be able to attend several speaking sessions, panel discussions, and workshops. So the next 6 points which I'll be telling you, you need to take care of very thoroughly. You can switch between Auditorium 1 and Auditorium 2 whenever you want. You can download the schedule for both the days from Agenda. Sign up for YouTube Music Premium. During the last few minutes of any session end, you can send in your questions to the speaker and we'll be asking them on your behalf. If you are attending Rhino Basics workshop today, which is happening at 4:30, it's mandatory, non-mandatory, but you should have Rhino software installed in your devices. Please open the screen from laptop screens for better results, and you can converse with each other in between through the network lounge. So our first speaker for today is Mr. Alexis Dornier from Stilt Studios. Alexis studied architecture at the Berlin University of the Arts, after which he relocated to New York City to work as an architectural designer. 2013 marked a radical shift in Dornier's life and career when he decided to leave his Western life behind and relocate to Ubud Bali, where he began consulting on locally designed and built architectural projects. What began as architectural consultancy quickly evolved into holistic independent project designs of his own, with rapidly growing body of work across Balinese landscape. Today he will be talking about is less best. So we welcome Mr. Alexis on screen and handing over the screen to you, Mr. Alexis.
It's a time of improvisation, right, for everyone, especially for the architecture profession and the design profession. So, okay, I'll give you a quick intro. So I'm Alexis. I was born in Munich in Germany, and I lived for many years in Berlin and in New York City, where I worked for OMA and some other offices. And then I relocated to Bali in 2013. I actually run two companies. One is called Alexis Dornier Studio. We're about 30 designers and architects. And then I also founded Stilt Studios with a former client of mine, which is now my friend and business partner, Florian. And with Stilt Studios, we aim to bring architecture in the realm of product design. And I can sort of show you a bit what we're working on So these so-called Stilt Studios are small scale structures that should be pre-crafted and that celebrate the compact, minimal space design. It's suitable for the tropic climate of Indonesia and Bali. And we have created these stilted units in various sizes to just literally be off the ground, to catch the natural breeze, to invite the visitor for unexpected views, and then literally bring the attention away from like big space over to like more intimate space. So here you can see a little bit what we're doing with Stilt Studios. Um, so minimal architecture, minimal design, something that's really intriguing. And the other uh, projects revolve around, residential homes, hotels, resorts, and so forth. So we're currently having about 30 projects in various scales and in the making with our team. And I can show you a little bit of a cross section of um, projects, and then maybe converse a little bit about architectural design drivers, and then in specificity, the title is less best. And then obviously we can talk about um, that anything we do has a certain impact, right? And the less we do, the less impact it would have. So it's revolving a conversation around that topic. So I'll show you this building, which is part of the Stilt Studios family, actually. But this is a 64 square meter unit that we are currently rolling out. And again, it's a pre-crafted um, building, which can be anywhere it has to be. So the approach here, the architectural approach, is to have a continuous transcendence of the environment, of the surrounding, in form of reflections, and then a very transparent architecture that is framing what is already there. And just like, as you can see, the landscape is untouched pretty much. And this is how a lot of our projects are working, which is kind of working with what is there and essentially having a very minimal impact on that end. So this is one of our smaller items, but we also have sort of bigger um, modules in the repertoire. So then I feel the studio doesn't have a specific style, as we love to be surprised by the teamwork and the collaboration with with the individual clients, and so it's rather sort of refraining from establishing one's own signature architecture, rather trying to practice different approaches, being surprised by one's own process, stretching one's mind, and hopefully conceiving new things and unexpected things, right? So we have completed a building here recently in Bali, which is a five bedroom residence. Here's again this topic of this transcendence, of continuation of the landscape, and how it's flowing through the building. And actually the color palette and the material palette is emphasizing that dissolving role that I think architecture could have in this context. So That being said, you see big buildings and smaller buildings, and obviously one of the key questions that us designers need to ask ourselves is, to what extent do we facilitate architecture that is sort of rather luxurious, or are we actually going for an ethos that proclaims a smaller scale minimalism architecture? So I'm very passionate about all scales and all demographics of architecture, if you want to call it that. And that's why Stilt Studios is aiming for a smaller scale repertoire. And you see these units are 5x5, 6x6 meters in size. Sometimes they're bigger, sometimes they're smaller. And less is best, in a sense of that. I feel we're being challenged as engineers and designers to come up with ideas that save materials. In this case, the approach was to have 4 center columns, and off these center columns we are hanging all the building's components, such as the roof and also the floors, instead of cantilevering them off the core. The core is strengthened by the spiral staircase that then sort of becomes the vertical circulation element. So you see these cables running down, and back to the core to create a sense of rigidity in here. So we aim to have modules that are lifted off the ground, obvious reasons, to catch the breeze, to provide view, and then also to either give way for landscaping underneath the building or for secondary usage. And we believe that experience is overruling luxury, right, in this case. So I think the people that have visited the studio so far, they were, I guess, quite intrigued by the small scale floor plan and arrangement and organization that they found. So in one of the units, you have the bed on top of the core, and then the living room is sort of revolving around that core. But we have many, many different versions and alterations of these units, right? So yeah, please feel free to visit the website and study yourself. This one is actually also quite interesting, as it's arranged through a sort of revolving spiral. So you start with the bathrooms, and the spaces are tearing up, living room and then bedroom and so forth. So with the same principle, the same load-bearing principle, we have a number of different variations that then become, I think, ephemeral, temporary, industrial-looking piece of architecture that signalizes that you're only there for a certain amount of time. So the approach and the question of how much impact and how heavy is the footprint on architecture. So many of these topics are being touched in this case. So you can see just a variety of different perspectives. And the units are quite close together, right? This is a small resort in Canggu in the south of Bali. And it actually is quite beautiful, as the sense of community is being embraced by these visual connections from building to building. And by now, actually, these trees have grown above the roofs and provide passive shading for the glass facades that are being sort of less exposed to sun, and therefore you reduce the energy bill of the building. Yeah, so this is in a nutshell what we're doing with Stilt Studios, and the sort of drivers of how we conceive the architecture is that we are creating a layering of different aspects surrounding the question of how to design. And maybe this building might be interesting as it has a number of different sort of intellectual elements that then, as a consequence of shuffling them, led to the shape and the material setting of this building. So one of the briefing extracts that we had in conversation with the client was that we want to create a tension between private spaces and public spaces within the building, sort of under the theme of together alone. And the building is shaped in form of a cross, and it has four living room or four rooms that are all pointing in different directions, and together in the center you have the vertical circulation, and underneath the building are the common spaces, which are outside and non-air conditioned. So that is sort of another layer of what created this design. And then also the question of how to create contemporary architecture in a vernacular setting. As you can see behind here, mostly the silhouette of the surrounding buildings is quite traditional in a Balinese sense. And we're literally landing here with an object that is, quite alien. Yet the silhouette of it is a sweep between a pitch and a flat roof as as symbols of something contemporary versus traditional, right? So you can see there's a flat, actually a pitch on this bar, and a flat roof on the other bar of the building, which then creates the overall shape. And maybe I'll just demonstrate real quick with a quick plan on what I mean by this. So the different color. The one building was situated like this, and the other building is intersecting the first building, and this here has a pitched roof silhouette, and this one has a flat roof silhouette, and we're merging these and create these sweeps, then sort of formally unite these two very different silhouettes into one gesture, right? So that was quite an interesting direction, or an interesting phenomenon, that we can have these sort of alone spaces which all point in their own direction, which is north, east, south, and west, and then we sort of meet in the center of the space to come together through two spiraling staircases that are sort of intertwined. And then underneath the building, there is the common area. And as this gesture evokes a lot of dynamic, we have framed the pool, which you can see here on the bottom right, in a way of a big circle. And let me just put another color here, yellow. So we're essentially creating a big circle around, and the pool is part of the circle segment. The music studio is part of this segment, some terrace spaces, atelier, and then a basketball court, which you can see here, actually the handrail of the basketball court in here. So there are a few topics that then, lead to the overall design. And I find it quite fascinating. And this shapes would have never been just simply been able to conceive by pure taste or, subjective opinion, but it is just the process of layering different aspects about architecture into one building, which I think is one of the sort of exciting buildings of our studio. You can see these sort of visual relationships between the buildings, and this tension between together and alone. Right. Another interesting completed project from last year, actually 2 years ago, is the Alpha House, which is playing with this idea of the silhouette in a different way, as architecture is contributing to the landscape in the form of silhouettes, and we're establishing a tectonic language, and through the repetition of these different segments, the mirroring and the copying, one creates some fascinating inside spaces, and then also it's like a very rhythmic, canonical approach on this. But again, here's a sweep is happening between a pitch and the idea of a flat roof, and then that becomes this oscillating moment and the sort of overarching architectural theme of the building. And then sort of sometimes compromise the spaces in here. They have sort of different atmospheres. And this is the living room that has then a double height space, so it's sort of visual access to the roof gesture. You can see that there is a datum here, and the lower floor holds the living room and kitchen and sort of public spaces, and then the private bedrooms are on top here, and that segment is being left out to show the sort of strength and the dynamic of this very consequential warp or twist, that then also creates the structural system of a grid shell, which proved to be quite effective and strong. As you're sort of transitioning this, you're having your different members being connected, and then you create a very thin, or rather thin shell, and creates a sort of powerful visual effect on that end. And we use these mirroring planes. This is a sort of cabinetry is behind here, and the bathrooms. So the reflection then sort of gives another opportunity to dramatize the the architecture. This project is still not started, but we're hoping that we can. It's called Kim Women Center in Bali for kids and females in need. Here, what I'm trying to get at is the sort of tectonic or the repetition of different simple structural elements and a slight variation that then creates an iconic silhouette. So the establishment of rhythm, which is very, I believe, important in any creation, whether it's music or film or architecture and design, the ability to create a chord progression or and this chord progression then kind of slowly changes and it still provides the spectator or the visitor to have a sense of familiarity and you know without throwing too much at the gesture and sculpture or design. So sort of the reduction, actually the reduction of architecture, architectural elements, and all these myriads of colors and textures and materials that one can use as a designer. Actually, it's a form of art to refrain from doing too much and just holding on and sticking to very simple aspects on the designs. So this will be made of bamboo once it's time. This building was also one of the first buildings built in Bali. It's again about this repetition of different sections in one direction and then the merging of another sort of inverted pitch towards the other direction. And there is this oscillation between two different sections, and that becomes a very dynamic piece of architecture. So you see the attempt to create a canonical logic in these buildings, may they be small or big in size. The generic spaces are rendered differently. Sort of the bedrooms, they're not emphasized through the pavilions, through this sort of flamboyant ceiling and roof. The only part that deserves this, in inverted commas, is sort of the common areas and the living room. Yeah, so I was wondering if maybe the moderator has some uh, questions. Would you like to sort of go deeper into certain aspects of the design, or maybe we could start a conversation? It's I'm quite curious to also know about your expectations and what you would like to talk about. Maybe there in the audience there are questions about this architecture, so we can have this done in a less sort of curated way and just kind of more of a discussion. I think that may be more exciting for everyone.
Hi, Alexis. Thank you so much
Hi.
for the insightful session. And there are a couple of questions already which are, we have for you, but we'll be taking it in another, we'll be mailing it to you and we'll be sharing it with them later because of a little bit of time constraint.
Okay,
So thank you so much for the insightful session,
sure.
and we gained a lot from your entire session and about the Balinese architecture, about how you have transformed the landscape there. So thank you so much for
Sure.
coming on IIDA Summit, and we look forward to have you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Then
thank
nice,
you.
nice speaking to you. Bye.
Yeah, bye.